Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show.
Okay, so for what it's worth, I'm going to send a text that says, I'm podcasting now. Please be quiet.
Good luck.
And I'll stop eating so you won't have chewing noise in the background.
I was told by my husband that he doesn't know what my eating schedule is. I'm like, what am I, an animal? my feeding schedule.
Yeah. I've been setting up feeding schedules and stall cleaning schedules and deworming schedules.
I don't know what your feeding schedule is, but I have a presentation I'm doing between, 1:30 and 1:55. I said, well, that's okay because I'm podcasting. I'll be upstairs, out of your way. I won't embarrass you. He goes, it's not about embarrassing me. It's just being disruptive with your loud noise, with my loud, TV shows.
Yeah, you know what? Diego would not make it in my house. I don't know. Maybe it'd be quieter if you took your shoes off. Are you seriously going to try and take that upstairs now? Can you do it in an hour? Oh my God. I sent the text, and now Delia is traipsing around in her noisy shoes trying to move furniture. Okay, and you know what's going to happen? It's a large trunk, and she's going to drop it on something, or she's going to fall down the stairs with it. So we're going to have that noise in the background.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of 5x3 Radio. We are here, Rebecca and I, on a very warm May day. It's actually May 4th. So for all you Star Wars fans out there, may the 4th
be with you.
Of course, this podcast won't air for another 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, so we always sound like we're off date.
Yeah, actually won't. It will air next week. I will air next week. Our recent podcast was just on consistency. So if you missed that one, go ahead and check that one out. It's probably one of the shortest episodes we've done. This one today goes along with consistency. I think it has some definitely elements of, what we should think about when we get into the gym and we're training, because we want to talk today about expectations versus reality. And this comes up a lot in our discussions with Rebecca and I have about our clients and, questions that they have in regards to their training and what they expect to get out of their training. And oftentimes, is there a number they should be thinking of, and what our approach is to those questions and to those concerns. So I was hoping I could just kind of turn this over to Rebecca just to kind of start us off, because this is something I think that you've talked to me a lot about in regards to clients that you've worked with, like in the gym, online, and it's something that has really been kind of on your mind a lot. How do we address this with our clients?
Yeah.
How do we help them see their training in a different light? So maybe
I guess the reason it comes up, it's come up a couple times with clients of mine who, in their current life, are primarily would fit into the category of desk jockey,
right?
Somebody who has an athletic background, past. And, is a little bit older, which is still younger than me usually. But,
those 35-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, but even 40, 50 years old, and maybe has an athletic background, maybe still is involved in some activity at some level, but maybe not at the same competitive degree that they were involved in when they were in college. But they've got like kind of a competitive streak to them. Mm-hmm. They've consumed a lot of the weightlifting or barbell related material that's out there.
Right.
And they have formulated certain expectations
Right.
of themselves and what they ought to be able to accomplish doing this particular program. And they're maybe thinking of themselves in terms of their athletic past more so than their current situation. And so then when they hear different barbell podcasts talking about, oh, well, most guys will get hung up on their overhead press somewhere around 150, maybe 175 pounds. That's when most guys will get hung up on that. And that's not at all their experience.
Right.
Or even actually right now I have a relatively new female trainee. She's been working with me in person for maybe about 4 or 5 weeks. And she does other activities right now. She's a track coach and she's real active with that. She's lifting 2 times a week, and she hasn't been consuming a lot of the barbell podcasts that are out there. But she's been looking at things like T Nation, how strong are you? Or are you strong? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So she's just getting started.
Sure.
But she's got these ideas like, oh, she should be doing 2 times body weight deadlift in order to be considered strong. So she's making excellent progress.
Right.
Even on just 2 days a week, she's making really fabulous progress, but she's comparing her expectation for her progress, even as rapid as it has been, to sort of more a finished product that she's seen on some chart or graph in like a T Nation.
Yeah, and that goes back to, I guess it's a podcast we did, right, about how did we do one about what is strong enough and like how do we equate being strong?
Well, maybe we didn't. I can't.
Maybe remember I can't remember we've done.
I can't remember what I did yesterday.
we talked about, but that goes to, well, what is strong enough? What is strong for somebody? I mean, in the 10 years that I've had, my gym and all the people that have come through, my doors and all the people that I've worked with. I mean, we've definitely evolved as a gym. We've evolved as coaches. I'm definitely a much better coach than I was 10 years ago.
Right. Me too.
And I definitely have changed my mind as to like, well, why are we doing what we're doing? What is your goal? I mean, I feel that when people walk through the door, their goal is to get stronger. Their goal is to get stronger for them, for their personal, well-being, for their daily living, for just, for health purposes. I mean, I see this is going to help stave off, hopefully, any illnesses that might occur. You're going to keep, help you with, any injuries that might occur if you're kind of active and you do outside activities. For my older clients, help them just be able to have a more quality lifestyle. So that idea of like I have
muscle mass, bone density,
muscle mass,
feel like
density,
you're
exactly
in control of your environment instead of at risk of.
My clients want to be able to, my older clients, my mom always says, I just want to be able to get off the toilet. I don't want to have to be stuck on the toilet, and it's a good goal because how many older people do we see who struggle to get out of a chair, who struggle to, who have to install lifts on their stairs because they can't walk the stairs anymore. It's, that idea of like it's kind of like the scale. We step on that scale and we equate that number on the scale to who we are. So if I step on the scale and the scale says 155 pounds and I go, 155 pounds. Okay. People are going to look at me. Nobody has any clue what weight I am unless I broadcast it to them. And just every time I meet somebody, hi, I'm Emily. I weigh 155 pounds. Hi, I'm Emily. I weigh 155 pounds. I mean, unless you want to tell people.
That's not awkward.
Not at all. No one cares. So if you're going to use that, then of course the same thing can be applied to the bar. So what you squatted in the gym, unless you walk around going, hi, I'm Rebecca. I squatted 200 pounds today. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I squatted 200 pounds. Would you like to see my video? People are going to go, it's that girl. She's like, every time I walk up to her, she's telling me how much she lifts. And it's annoying.
So I'll tell you though, I think there's a lot of people who when they start with, I mean, because I'm including myself in this category
Right.
too, because I was really annoying at the beginning. We ask Todd. But like, if you're sort of like, if you're kind of new to barbell training, I don't think that that's unusual.
Sure.
That like when you're new to barbell training, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And like the first year, 2 years or something, like it's very easy to get caught up in
Sure.
In your training and like how much you can lift, because you never really conceptualized, or I never really conceptualized myself in terms
Right.
of weights that way. It was more like weight was always what was the weight on the scale,
Right.
not how much weight could I move in the world. And so it's just a fascinating mind shift, which is like one of the really cool things I think about barbell training for women. But in the same way that scale weight can often be used not as a helpful tool
Right.
towards helping you reach a goal of overall health and well-being, weights on your bar can turn into the same kind of thing, can morph into that.
Yes. Yes.
I lived there for a while.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you start comparing yourself to other people and what they are lifting and what you are lifting. You know, I mean, this is. I sent a video to Craig, to Coach Craig, of my squat. And I was so proud. I was proud of myself. I wanted him to see it, because we always share our accomplishments. And then he sent me a video of one of his clients squatting 10 pounds more for like 6 reps, and I've been squatting beltless. So I'm like really happy with like the fact that I've been like squatting beltless for a number of months, and it's weights that I've never squatted beltless before. So those are all like big PRs for me. Right. And it's been a nice boost for me actually, for not for my ego as in like what I can lift, but the fact that my back is strong enough to be able to like handle that load without a belt is huge. Because you're talking about like 11 years ago is when I had that whole back incident, and I never wanted to be in that situation again. So for me, it's like proving that my body is so much better, so much stronger. Right. So he sends me the video, and I looked at it and I was like, damn. And I sent back and I was like, one day I'll be strong like her.
Oh my God, Emily.
And he sends me a response back. He goes, and you know what she said to you when I showed her your video? Oh my God, look at her knees. Look how she doesn't have to fight with her knees. Look at the bottom of her squat. Like we're always comparing, but the funny thing is we're comparing like our lifts. I mean, I'm looking at her going, damn, one day I'll be strong like her. And it's a joke. And at the same time, it's like, I'm acknowledging that she's strong. I'm acknowledging that she looks good. I mean, and this is someone I know. I always think she looks fantastic. I know how strong she is. She exhibits that when she does our strongman contest and when she comes and does our events. She's a fantastic lifter. She's a fantastic woman. And so I'm acknowledging that she is strong. And I'm acknowledging also, I'm joking that like, one day I'll get there. I'm where I am. I'm where I am, and I'm very pleased with where I am. And I said to Craig, I said, I'm sorry, this is who we are. I apologize for it. The grass is always greener, right?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. That number on that bar can actually start to like, mess with people's minds. And it's not just women, it's men too, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also that like you're kind of giving two different examples of the ways that we compare ourselves, or that people tend to, right? So in the one case, it's, you compare yourself to your buddy in the gym or someone that or, like that sort of thing. And that might be like a little bit of a friendly competition between two individuals that plays out similar to how you described, where you recognize each other's strengths and maybe you encourage each other. But often it's the sort of thing like the first situation I'm describing, where each of those individuals is comparing themselves to something that's somewhat arbitrary. They don't know how those numbers in the T Nation article or on the podcast discussions relate to them in their bodies and what they're able to do. Right. So the best kind of competition, I think, usually is, with yourself. Can you do more or better or stronger, or, or given particular life circumstances, is this the strongest you've been, most consistent you've been during one of the, rough stretches at work where there's different outside factors sometimes that'll play into it. I mean, and this is not I'm not talking about people who are competitive athletes,
Right.
like people who do their barbell training, find out they're genetically gifted, and decide to go compete on high level, right? That's a totally different story. Maybe in that case, there's, well, whatever. That's not.
Yeah, no, that's not most of us. I mean, that's not most of us. Like, as Diego says all the time, most of us, when we do our programming lectures at our camps, most of us are going to be intermediate lifters for the rest of our lives. We're never going to be advanced lifters unless we decide to give everything up and we can eat and breathe and sleep lifting. We're not going to be advanced lifters. That's not who we are. We know they have jobs, we have lives, we have families, we get sick, we have vacations. We're not devoting ourselves to that is not what most of the people that we train want, right? And unless you do that, you may never hit that number, that arbitrary number that you have in your head, right? It may be that if you want to hit that certain number, you're going to have to eat more. You're going to have to gain more weight, right? Mass moves mass. So, there's like, hey, are you willing to gain 25 pounds of body weight in order to lift that? Because if you
change your programming, do like a big hypertrophy block,
cut out the running, cut out the biking, cut out all the extra activities that you're doing that will impact your training. I'm stopping my Zoom classes. I've been running my Zoom classes, my online boot camp classes still, 4 days a week. 3 days for, then I actually just stopped. So now I'm down to 3 days. I'm down to 3 days a week, but I've been doing it for like 52 plus weeks, right? For over a year.
And you're actually like participating. You're demonstrating.
I have to do it. I have to do the class. So I'm doing the class, and it's very minimal weights for me, but it's still, I'm talking, I'm doing it. That's 40 minutes, 4 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, plus my own training. I can't imagine once I stop that, where my training will be able to go, how my body's going to feel, because I'm trying to fight with my body right now and perform well there. And at the same time, have enough energy to run my classes. And also I'm coaching, right? Before that. And then after that. So there's a lot. So unless you're willing to, erase everything, and that's my job. So I have to do it. But unless you're willing to like cut everything else out in order to get that 155 pound press that you think you should have by now, does it really matter what the weight is? Does it matter that you have been coming in consistently, that you're feeling better, that you're moving better, that things don't hurt as much, that other activities are easier, all those various things why are we doing the training in the first place? If we're miserable with what we're doing in the gym because our numbers aren't where they should be, we need to stop. And
that was should with like air quotes.
Yes. We need to step back and reflect on, why am I doing this? Is this making me happy? Or is this making me more frustrated? And do I need to maybe have a better, do I need to work on this relationship that I have with my lifting? As I was mentioning, with the couple that I have in the mornings, and he's, they're both in their he's in his early 70s and she's in her late 60s. And he was saying he started in November. He has such a better relationship now with his training because it's not about that number anymore, where it was. And he would get so upset and so worried, and he would, just agonize over coming to the gym and being so nervous because what happens if I don't get that weight? What happens?
So this is interesting to me because, like, I was just saying, like, I've seen plenty of lifters getting started without a lot of barbell training prior to this who get into that mindset. I got into that mindset. I wonder why that happens. Like, I wonder if it's like this, get as strong as possible, as quick as possible. And here's a program and you're a machine and you should respond in this way. But
I think
I
think it's a personality. I think it's personality. I think it's just what kind of personality that you have. If that's been something that has been part of your life, like new activities for you, maybe there's a part of like just a perfectionism type of, personality. I mean, I'm definitely a perfectionist, but I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to this. As you said, the only person I'm competing with when I'm at the gym is me. I mean, joking aside with what I was, saying, I hope one day I'll be strong enough. I'll be as strong as Jen. But it's not about that. All the lifters at my gym, I mean, my goal is always to make them a better version of themselves, a stronger version of themselves. And whatever number they're moving, whatever weight they're lifting, they're lifting is right for them. They're moving forward. They're making progress. Whether they're squatting more than me, squatting less than me, I don't care, because I'm not competing with them. They're not competing with me. That's not why they're there. They're there for them. And if you get caught up in a number and that consumes your life and consumes your training, you're not getting the most out of your training. You're not getting the most out of the time that you're spent there, because there's so much
and
more.
Half the time, the person will get spooled up in their head about that, lift or making progress there, and then it ends up being detrimental. They end up screwing something up, getting in their head. Always. I've done that with deadlifts.
Always.
For sure.
Always. Always. And that's Manny. That's the squat for him. He gets in his head. And I said, you've got to get out of your head, man. It's not that big of a deal. It's a squat. It's okay. I mean, and we're not doing this for a living. I mean, yes, I'm coaching for a living. So, but I have to, my coaching has to, reflect the personality that I am. I have to, if I were very competitive, if I really was obsessed with a number, I don't know what kind of coach I would be. I think I'd be concerned about myself as a coach, because then how do I relate to my members when they don't feel like they're making that, that when they feel like I haven't hit that number, and I say to them, yeah, I don't know why you haven't hit that number. I mean, seriously, come on. That would be very poor on my part because that's not what training is. It's not a number. I don't know what number you're supposed to have by the end of two months. I don't really care about that number. I care about a year from now. Are you still training? As Diego always said, right? Diego says it all the time. I don't care where you are a month from now, 2 months from now. I care where you are a year from now. Where are you a year from now? Let's talk about you. Let's talk about this in a year, because so much can happen in a year. I'm
just thinking about this then back to the idea of expectation. Right. And so I think a lot of times maybe it seems like if somebody's new and they're trying to set their expectations and they're looking towards different resources that are out there that are geared more towards people who have maybe got 10, 20 years of lifting under their belt. They're already pretty strong, and this is what you should be doing. That's not maybe the best place to look in order to set expectations. Sure. Maybe looking back at your own training log to set your expectations is a better place. What is this body that I have been given capable of doing if I train in this way, if I recover in this manner, and then build from there. But when you're just first starting out, you don't have that log to look back on.
Right.
And looking at external sources to help create those expectations, sometimes is
I mean, it can help. No, it can. Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I guess, that's where a coach kind of can help.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think it is. I mean, it's easy when you're in an environment like at my gym, where a new person can come in and be surrounded by all these different people, right? And everyone's got different weight on the bar. And they look at someone, let's say it's a female client, and they look at or even a male client, they look at another lifter and they're like, oh, wow, look at all that weight. Well, I'll say, Laura's been training for 5 years. That's 5 years of progress. That's not a month. You've been here for a month. That's 5 years. Okay. Or that's 6 months, or, whatever it is. But it's but that's what happens after a long, long time. That's a lot of weight. And she's, she can lift that, but she didn't start there. It doesn't matter where you start. I had a client today who was finished his deadlift, and he's an old, older man, in his late 60s, and he said to me, "I get it." I said, "What do you get?" He said, "I get now. You learn the technique first, you learn the movement, and then once you learn it, then the weight, the weight goes on." He said, "Because now it feels heavy, but at the same time, my technique is good, and I feel confident in my technique, so I can move that weight." I said, "Exactly. We didn't start with 110 pounds. We started with 45 pounds, right? And we added a little bit each time you came in, and we worked on your position, and we practiced over and over and over again. And I reminded you of the setup, and I reminded you of where your hands should be, and I reminded you and it was like, oh, I get it. He's got no idea what weight's on that bar ever. He has no idea ever what weight's on the bar. I just put the weight on, and he does it. He never questions it. But
that's funny too. Like people
right?
who are new and doing their plate math, and you can keep it totally secret because the plate math is really tricky. I had someone this morning, like I could see her fingers ticking like this, and I'm like, "It's 125." She's like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "Because your fingers are doing this. I can see you're counting on them."
So when the person is not loading the bar and you're loading the bar, they don't know, but he does know that, oh, that weight is heavier, but my technique is better, so I can move that weight well. So it's good when the person just doesn't have any clue what the weight is, and they just know that they're better at it, and that's what makes you stronger. Is once you have the movement pattern. Then, because I said, you came in being able to pick something up, so you have enough strength to pick something up. Once you learn that movement, now you can pick more up. So, but it's some people have an expectation, and others just have an expectation of, I just don't want to hurt myself. Like he said to me, "I'm so surprised I haven't hurt myself." I was like, surprised you haven't hurt yourself. I said, do no harm. You know that one? He's a retired doctor. I said, do no harm. Gotcha. He laughed. I said, that's not my role here. I know every time I've gone to the gym, I said, well, I don't know what trainers you've had, but in here, I'm not going to have you do something that's going to hurt you. The whole point of this is to make you better, right? So it's having to kind of fight two different people, two different clients. Those who like throw don't care, throw caution to the wind, and then those who really do care, and having to talk them off the ledge and help them see how much progress they have made. And where they're still going, and that they are not John who's on that bar, who's been pressing, who's been training for 10 years. And even if John's only been training for 5 years and has a heavier, who cares? That's him. That's not you. Let's focus on you. Let's focus on
eyes on your own paper.
Always. But I think it's something to do with maybe the perfectionism, or maybe even self-esteem, or maybe they things have always come easy for them, and now there's something that's not so easy. And why is it not easy? Because everything else has been easy. I mean, there's you never know like who's coming into this and what they're bringing with them from like the past. If it's like an older lifter. But yeah, I think I don't discourage people from listening to like other people's podcasts, but I don't encourage it. Or I'll just kind of, if someone says, well, I was listening to this podcast and they said this, I go, sure. Okay. Yeah. That's what they say. This is what I say. And you're in my gym and I'm your coach and I'm working with you. They're not working with you. Whoever they're working with, I don't know, but that kind of number that you throw out there, some people are going to grab onto that number and they're really going to take it to heart. So I think you have to kind of watch what you say when you just kind of blatantly say, yeah, a female should be able to press such and such, or, people, or my women get stuck around 60 pounds. I would never say that. I don't have a number for my women who, when they get stuck at, or their deadlift. Why would I just throw a number out there, kind of randomly, like, oh yeah, most of my clients get stuck at this number. That's not what. Yeah, that's not what we're doing at the gym. We're not doing numbers.
But those actually aren't the only numbers I'm thinking of now that get thrown out there. Like, what number do you have to hit to be like a real man?
Yeah,
or a real woman?
Oh yeah, like weight wise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that gets tossed around too.
Big time. Big time.
which, I mean, real woman weight on me would not be the same as that on you. That would not.
No,
I mean, and again, this is like arbitrary and general.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think sometimes people hear these things and they take them as specific or directive, instead of seeing that it's really actually just a generality. It's not something that's always going to apply to every individual in that exact way.
Especially if they're new to this, especially if it's somebody who's new and they're going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And they're really into it, you know, because I think people get into that. They get so excited about something. They start to like.
I told you, my guy that was concerned about his press weight, like once we sort of switched to some online stuff and he's sending me video, like, well, because he would do some lifts with me in person and some at home, like the whole time in the background, it's like barbell podcasts that he's listening to.
Yeah.
So it's a steady diet of certain ideas of what he should be able to do. Mm-hmm. And then he started to really feel like he was coming up short on expectation.
I never listened.
Reality.
I guess podcasts weren't really popular when I started this. So back in like 2010. Yeah, 2010. The podcasts weren't the thing, right? Was anybody doing podcasts? Did they even exist? But
I didn't know, but I listened to a lot more in this last year.
Yeah, I didn't listen to I didn't really, listen to many people. I mean, I read articles, but I didn't become obsessed with numbers. The only number that I have ever been obsessed with is the scale, right? Talk about that. And the only time I remember ever being like thinking like I have to hit a certain number was when I was, and I mentioned this in the podcast a long time in the Body Image podcast, when I was in the doctor's office and I was 15 and I had my physical before I went away to camp and I weighed 120 pounds. And I remember saying, I can't weigh 120 pounds. I'm not supposed to weigh this. Thinking that my teacher had some arbitrary number that we were all supposed to weigh, even though we all had different bodies.
Different heights.
But somehow this random number came out of my head of I can't weigh X. And that's the only number I've ever been obsessed with, and I've had to work on not obsessing. The number on the bar has never been an obsession with me. Maybe because it's more of the technique. I'm always focused on my technique and doing better with my action, like doing the movement. And I think maybe that comes from just dancing, getting better.
And this is actually, though, what you were talking about initially, the difference between process and product, or process and outcome, right? Because, there is plenty of conversation about, nobody ever went to the gym and said, who cares what weight is on his bar? His form is fabulous, right? So like the flip side of what we're saying, right? But that's also legitimate. That's like a person who is focused on outcome. And maybe they're going to be more competitive, and maybe they're going to have been lifting for a longer amount of time, and they're going to have a track record, and they can look back and see what's a reasonable expectation for them given their life experience, or their lifting experience, but kind of coming in brand new and trying to set those expectations.
Yeah. And
sometimes can be discouraging if you're looking at the wrong stuff.
Yeah. And it's hard. And it is hard sometimes as a coach to talk about that to somebody, to really get them to understand, what reality is, expectations versus where they are. I'm thinking about as a coach, as coaches, what I'm lifting versus what my clients lift, and how that doesn't matter what I'm lifting. I can coach somebody through a heavy squat, through a heavy deadlift, through a heavy press, and I can't press what they can press. Doesn't make me a bad coach that I can't press 175 pounds. That's a guy. Even if it's a woman, I can still coach them on the press. That's their press. And I want to make them a better lifter, and I want them to get their weight up. So I know how to help them and coach them through it. It's that, that dancer who teaches because they'll never be the professional dancer, and the professional dancer who really can't instruct at all because it just comes so naturally to them. there's that piece of the puzzle too, right? The person who's had to really work hard and struggle to really get that weight up, to really work on their form. And then the person who comes in is just, and already has it. I'm going to take the person who's kind of the one who has to struggle more. I can help them with that. I can help them with both, but I, the coach, can really help both. And it takes the you have to kind of separate yourself from that number as much as you can when you're coaching and when you're training. And it's really hard sometimes, I think, for people to separate themselves, because maybe they do see, I don't know, that they should be able to do more, or they someone told them they could do more. And I don't know. It's a really mix of feelings. It's a really mix of feelings.
Yeah, I think it does sort of, like you're saying earlier, tie back into a strand of perfectionism in some individuals.
Yeah.
Competitiveness, but perfectionism as well. When they get disappointed with themselves for not hitting a certain, milestone, or the 3-plate club, or the 2-plate club, or whatever.
And we all get frustrated. We can all be frustrated with,
You switch to kilos and it's different numbers of plates anyway.
Yeah, we're trying.
It's kind of arbitrary, but
we're working hard. We're working hard. We want to think that we're making progress. But this goes back to, everything we've said. But if we only focus on that number as our way of making progress, we're really going to be disappointed and just stay frustrated, because it's not just the number. There's the reps. There's sets, there's doing it beltless, right? there is, recovering better from the last workout. There is, not needing to rest as long between sets. I mean, there's so many different ways for you to see that you have gotten stronger, that you have made progress, other than the number is different on the bar.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, initially when you're starting, that's the one variable that changes each time, right? That's how you're measuring the progress. That's how you're taught initially on your linear progression to measure progress. And so that lesson becomes ingrained in a certain, to a certain degree, that's, the only or the best way to measure progress. There's other ways too. And sometimes other ways of measuring progress are more conducive to your current life situation. Or even just like recently, we're talking about consistency. Sometimes just being able to be consistent. I have a client right now who I guess for a year, with 3 medium kids, like elementary and middle school kids at home, husband working from home, things are starting to open back up, but she's just been worn down. Yeah. And consistency for her is a major victory at this point. And I mean, we have readjusted and tried to set goals that, are so drastically different from what she was doing a year ago. But at this point for her, if she was just focused on weight on the bar, holy smokes. That would be very discouraging, but she's able to, focus on consistency now.
Absolutely.
As her goal.
Yeah. And I think if you're training on your own and all you're doing is focusing on that weight, that 5 pounds every time, then eventually, when you don't have somebody telling you, hey, you're doing great. Look at what look how much progress you've made. Just the fact that each set gets better, or wow, look at your form. Your form is improving. Like the weight's going up, but also, look how much easier it is for you. You're not as out of breath. Your conditioning is better. I mean, there's all that. So I measure progress, yes, with people when they're, they've added weight, 5 pounds more, but I also measure progress. Like with one of my clients who just started with us, she's been with us for about a month. She had a frozen shoulder surgery back in just this past March. So she's started with us because for 3 years she couldn't move her arm, and she tried PT, and finally it was like surgery was the only resort. So she's got range of motion, but now she's got no strength. So she's building that. Within like 3 days, it wasn't the weight that was going on the bar. It was the fact that she could get under the bar as quickly as she could. Like she's using the camber bar because she can't squat with even with a high bar yet, because she just has such little range of motion still, even though it's so much better because she can actually lift her arm up again. But the fact that she can grab the camber bar so much easier now, that she gets in and underneath that bar easier, that the swing press, we do that for her mobility, everything is just in a couple days. So for her, it's not, oh, look at the weight you're lifting. It's, wow, look how much easier it is for you to get under the bar. Wow, you can actually get into a high bar position now. You couldn't do that on day 1. Now it's day 8 and you can. So there we're measuring her progress as in just her ability to move better, to move through that motion. She's already strong. She's strong to begin with, but that right arm is useless right now. It's got to learn how to function again, right? It needs to learn what it feels like to put the arm over the head, which she hasn't done in how many years? It's been 3 years, she said. It was 3 years before she had the surgery. She's a young woman. So if I were to say to her, oh, look, there's 5 pounds more in your bar, who the fuck cares? Excuse me. The first time I've sworn like that on my podcast.
First time you said that one.
I know, right? But who cares? That's not, so she would be like, yeah, 5 pounds more. That's great. I'm so excited. That's not what she's there for yet, right? Yes, she wants to get stronger. But my goal is, my whole thing is, we're looking at, wow, look at what your arm is able to do now. Look at where you are with your mobility. Look at where you are with your flexibility. She's thrilled.
So this is interesting too, because so she comes in and she knows she has like a limitation. It's obvious to her. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's maybe actually a little bit easier situation to deal with than someone who's coming in who doesn't have any sort of really obvious to them or to you limitations, but just,
But at the same time, if after 2 weeks she wasn't any better, like she didn't feel like she was, like it was still hard for her to get in position, or was still hard, I feel bad. And I, as the trainee, would be like, what am I doing here? I don't feel like I'm going to be able to make progress here or build my strength, because I'm still having a hard time getting my arm to this position. Whereas in 3 days, it was immediate, because we as coaches know what to do. We know how to work with someone like that. We do have a lot of resources at our fingertips. But she was able to see that. And again, it wasn't so much it wasn't the weight. It was just the mobility. But even people who come in, I don't spend a lot of time like, oh, wow, look at where you were when you started. Look where you are now. It's usually, look how much more conditioned you are. Look how less tired you are. Look how easier that movement is for you. Right. I think if you start to encourage people and have them think that the progress they're making is, yes, they've done more weight, but also the technique is better. They're keeping their eyes down now when they squat.
Their confidence level, range of motion.
They're not. Look, I one of my clients who was always so out of breath after her deadlifts. I'm like, wow, look how you're talking to me after you just finished your deadlifts. Like your deadlift, you just did your set, and now you're having a conversation with me, and the laugh. Like, yeah, I know. I remember when I was outside wanting to die because I couldn't get my breath. That's important. And I think if you start from the beginning of instilling in them that feeling of like, this is why I'm training, this is what it means to train, this is what it means to make progress, then that number doesn't become in their head too much. It still might get in their head if they're doing outside things like listening to podcasts. But at least in the gym or with your client, you can control maybe how they start to focus on what does progress mean? What is what is reality? And then when someone ever says to me, so what number do you think I should be able to hit? I go, I have no clue. And, it goes back to just show up. Can you just do that for me? Can you just make sure you come in? Because then whatever you hit is, that number is going to be great. There is no number. There is no magic number. That chart is just a chart. Who knows who put that together? Who cares who put it together? you're in this place right now. You're in this gym with me, with all these people. We're here for one thing, to just do better for ourselves. Yeah, but it can be hard when you have someone who's just so stuck on, one thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything or many things are a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Chasing after a number can be incentive. It can be something that's motivating. It can be something that is, a goal that you set for yourself that, you celebrate when you achieve it, but like when figuring out what's the correct goal to set when you're first starting.
Yeah.
And you don't have that logbook to look back on and the experience.
Yes.
That's, I think, the situation that I've come across more than once with relatively new trainees, and they're trying to choose their goals. And then as the coach, trying to help them adjust their expectations is sometimes a tricky conversation.
Yeah.
It's a little delicate.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because sometimes what you've got is a situation where a trainee, like I've described, in the 40, 50-year-old range with a background of athleticism, is expecting to be able to do what they may have been able to do in their 20s. And that idea gets reinforced by what they think is an easily achievable lifting goal based on the media that they're consuming. And then to try and have that conversation like, well, let's just see how things go, and try and base your ideas of progress on what you're doing instead of
you almost wish like that the other media would come out and say, we did a podcast once about where people should be with their numbers or where they get stuck. We should rephrase that. We should return to that and discuss that. Really, it's going to depend from person to person, right? There's always that it depends. When Diego's asked a question about something, he always says, well, it depends. There is no cut and dry answer. There is no men usually get stuck around. Okay, we've got men who weigh 250.
Yeah.
We've got men who weigh 150. We've got men who weigh, 185 and are, 6'5". And we've got
and they carry their body mass in different places and in different ways. And they've got different levels or degrees of athleticism and quality of movement and length of limb and
they train
proprioception or anything.
All that. I'd say that if anything, most of the guys at our gym, where do they get stuck? They usually get stuck around the 140, 150 range if they've gotten up to that point. If they can get past 135, right? 135 is a pretty nice big milestone, right? That's a nice press. It's a good press. It's a great press. Not too many people press in the gym at all. But for many of the guys, once they get to 135, getting to about 145, 150, that's where they hit the wall. Now that just seems to be kind of because we have a lot of guys who have been really consistent with their training, and they eat well and they come and they show up and they're engaged with what they're doing and they follow the program. They don't do anything extra. They're making nice progress, but then they hit a wall. Well, there are plenty of guys who hit the wall at 115 too. Most of my younger guys get past 135 more easily than my older guys. Interesting. Like my guys who are in their 40s or so, they've struggled a little bit more trying to hit that number. Whereas my guys who are 24, 30, they actually, they're able to go a little bit further, but not all of them. I've got a guy who's, in his 30s, big guy. He has a hard time with his press. Long arms, long limbs. He just struggles with his press. It is what it is. I have to talk him off that ledge a lot and encourage him because it's just a lift that seems to be, a trouble spot for him. he doesn't necessarily have a number in his head. He just wants to be able to do more. He just wants to be able to do better. And he gets that. But I just think, blatantly coming out and saying on a podcast or on a video or whatever, most men, I come back and say that, repeat that and rephrase that and say, everyone's going to hit the wall at some point. It's always going to depend on who you are, where you are with your training, how old you are, and just in general, you might have better lifts than others. Some of us are good deadlifters. Some of us are great squatters. Some of us are good pressers and suck at benching. And, and then you have people who can do it all. We call those people power lifters. We call them advanced, people who do this for a living. That's what we call them. We call them the competitors. We call them the people who have decided that this is going to be their life goal. So I think it's our responsibility as coaches and our responsibility as people. If we're going to put information out there, we really need to be a little bit more honest, with and be mindful of what we're saying and who might be listening. I would want someone to maybe question me if I said something on this podcast, be like, yeah, well, you mentioned this in your last podcast, and could you talk about that more? Because I kind of feel like I wanted to address it. I feel like we're sharing our experiences as coaches. We're sharing our experiences as trainees, as females in this world where it's more dominated by men. And we have a lot of men who listen to this podcast. We have a lot of men who follow us. My goal, at least, and I'm sure it is too, you as well, share our opinions, share our thoughts, but share good information, real information. Right. And if anybody has a, concern about anything, we want to address that, because we're coming from our experiences. Other people might have different experiences. I just see what I see, at my gym.
So we were kind of talking about expectation initially. And I think we've I was kind of thinking some other angles of what expectations someone might have coming towards barbell training. But I think all of that other stuff probably fits in a different podcast. We should probably wrap things up because you got time.
Exactly. No, I think this is good. I think ending here is a good place. So, so as always, I kind of ended with, if people have questions about anything that we've talked about on our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. I know people really do.
And the answer is, it depends.
It always depends. Always depends.
It's barbell medicine's version of that. It's a nuance.
It's nuanced.
You get the nuance. It depends.
It's ours. That's ours. We'll quote Diego. It depends. So contact us if you've got questions. Emily at 5by3.com and Rebecca's at
cornerstonestrengthmaryland@gmail.com or cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com.
There we go. And if you'd like what you hear and you'd like to leave us a review, please go ahead and do that. We definitely appreciate the review. The more reviews, I think the more the podcast gets out to people. So give us those stars. Thanks, everyone. We will be back in a couple of weeks with yet another podcast. Not sure what that one's going to be about. We've got a couple ideas that we're kind of thinking about, but we will be back after this one. So have a great week. We'll catch you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah. Take care.
Thanks for listening to 5by3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5by3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.